This time on Ask Rad Rat, we figure out who has the right to name a trick. Welcome back to Rad Rat Video. Here on the channel we talk about all kinds of skateboarding topics, from game reviews to trick histories to your questions on Ask Rad Rat. And if it looks a little bit better in here than normal, that's because I met up with fellow YouTuber DTech3D, who gave me a video light, and he also 3D printed my logo. So what he does on his channel, 3D printing type of stuff, we met up, hung out a little bit, talked about YouTube, and he surprised me by printing that for me. The video light is still experimental at this point. I'm trying to figure out what kind of bulb to put in it and that kind of stuff. But big thanks to him. Over the next few weeks, I'm sure I'll get it all figured out and things are going to start looking a lot better around here. So thanks to Dominic again, and let's get into the questions. The first one is from Brownman13, who asked, what trick do you find hardest in real life? So I thought I would ask this to all you guys. I don't know if there's some tricks that are just really awkward. For me, it's frontside heel flips. And if I try a frontside heel just kind of casually, just give it a try, I basically flick a little bit, not far enough, and then I trip over the board in the air. It just does not work for me. Really weird. And it's not that I have problems with frontside or heel flip stuff. So a lot of you guys know about my knee issues. I've been skating a little bit more, trying to skate, get a couple of tricks back. And one of the first things that came back was a varial heel flip, which is really weird. I was never good at those. I could just suddenly do them and then catch them. But I could do that, but I try frontside heel and I'm just like on my face instantly. I don't know what it is about that trick. So awkward and incredibly weird. So for me, that's the one trick that just will never click. Even if I could do one, and I did them in both stances just to say I did them, but I could never get those consistent. But the big question today is from Philip Lazik, who, what he asks is, I would love to see a video about 1-foot ollies / ollie norths. And he didn't really give me a specific angle at that, so I interpreted that as who has the right to name a trick, because we're talking about a 1-foot ollie versus an ollie north. The name changed. Why did it change? Is it okay to change the name of a trick? And so I thought we would talk about that a little bit. So the thing is, a skateboard trick doesn't really have a name, in my opinion. It has a nickname. And that kind of stuff can change over time. Think about what your parents called you when you were 2 versus what your coworkers call you at the office. You know, these things change a lot. There's a million examples of trick names changing over time. Like the kickflip, for example, used to be called the magic flip, and then the ollie kickflip, and then just the kickflip. You know, and then you had the kickflip, the old school version, where you'd hook your toe under it and flip over. That was the kickflip. And then later that had to be called the old school kickflip. You know, like these things just kind of change over time, and there's a million examples of how that can happen. But the question is, who has the right to just decide that this trick has a new name now? And I don't think anybody does. I think that a trick name comes from what people call it. And that's all there is to it, you know, just like a nickname. You can't go around and tell people, you know, call me this. And it doesn't really stick. It has to happen. And so I've got a few more examples for you. The flamingo. Okay, so this is, you may think of this as the Mike V trick, you know, where he plants his foot, wraps the board around his leg, and then, you know, and then lands it from there. And it's called a flamingo because you're standing on one foot like a flamingo. But the thing is, the flamingo name was already taken. There's a freestyle trick where you have one foot on the nose and you pivot around, roll backwards on one foot, and you kind of carve. Not a very common trick these days, not a very popular trick, but that already had the name flamingo, and it was a one-footed trick. Makes a lot of sense that it would be called a flamingo, but it got taken. The trick name got taken, so calf wraps became called flamingos, and that happens, and you don't see anyone complaining about it. They just accepted it. That's what happened, and that's all there is to it. Another example would be the varial kickflip. So a lot of times when I say varial kickflip in a video, I'll get comments saying that it's kickflip shove it or whatever, you know. And the thing is, that's another thing that was kind of crazy. There was a lot of Wild West weirdness back in the day, especially in the early 90s when a lot of this stuff the tech stuff was getting more and more common. So Dan Gallagher, the guy who probably invented the hard flip, see a video about that there. It's basically a whole series now with updates, but he had an interview talking about nollie 360 flips, and he probably invented that too, it's possible, but he called it a 360 varial. Not a 360 varial flip, or just 360 varial. So I was doing nollie 360 varials and then whatever, and it's just so weird that that's what people would say at the time. At least in his circle of friends, you know, just like nicknames, trick names can be different in different areas. But you think about how the name varial kickflip is so old, it's got a lot of history, people have been saying it since before I was born, but it's not technically right. So Tony Hawk had this video a while ago where he very pointedly says it's not a varial unless you use your hand. But his game is what kind of standardized the name varial kickflip anyway. So anyway, that's just one of the examples. Is it a kickflip shove it? Is it a varial kickflip? In my opinion, it's both. And it doesn't really matter. There's no good reason to say it has to be one or the other. People know the name varial kickflip, even if it's not technically accurate, even if you should have to use your hand to do it. But it is what it is. So that one kind of came from the Tony Hawk games, where that kind of standardized the name varial kickflip, and that's also where Ollie North came from. So it seems like the name Ollie North was just invented for the Tony Hawk games. I haven't seen it used anywhere else, which is kind of weird. I don't know why they would do that. It's a reference to Oliver North. I don't know why. It just kind of is what it is. I try to think up some ideas for why they might have changed it. From a coding perspective, you know, maybe the variable name was too long, but it's really not. You could have just said 1 foot. You know, like there's really no good reason they had to do that. Maybe it was just a joke, you know, maybe it was just a placeholder while they tried to figure out what the real name was. Who knows why it happened? And a lot of people get really upset about it, but the thing is, does it really matter? So this Monday, I talked about barley grinds and Bennett grinds. You can watch that right here. And that talks about how those tricks got named after the people who did them, but the names didn't come from those guys. It came from you know, Thrasher, captions, especially for the Bennett grind. Barley grind, I think, kind of came from all over the place. But the point is, people named it based on the person's name, but that's just a guy at Thrasher or whatever who wrote that. Why does he have the right to name a trick, but the guy who worked on the Tony Hawk games doesn't? You know, that guy might have skated too. It's kind of hard to say where you draw the line for where it's okay to name a trick and when you can't. So for the Ollie North, at least, now it's got, what, 18 years of history, that name, and I think that it's not going anywhere. I say Ollie North sometimes. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that, but it is kind of weird to think about, you know, do you have the right to name your own trick? Recently, I talked about the Caballero, and if Steve Caballero has the right to make rules about how his trick name can be used. And what someone commented in that video was that I never invented a trick, so I don't know what I'm talking about. I actually have invented a trick. So this is it. This is a toe side semi-flip, semi-rail flip, I guess. I got a trophy for inventing this trick in 2006 from the World Freestyle Skateboard Association. Whether I did actually invent it and land it first, I don't know. I'd say it's maybe a 50-50 chance. But I did that trick and I didn't name it anything. If I did, it wouldn't have caught on because no one else ever... I mean, it's not so hard that I invented it. It's that no one cared to do it before. So... You know, I didn't name it anything. If it caught on and I did it all the time and I was doing it in contests and it really caught on, maybe a name would have kind of developed. But trying to just name a trick just to name it is kind of pointless. So you could call it a toe side semi-flip and it makes more sense than trying to learn this new trick name that I came up with. So, you know, that's just one thing I was thinking about. And so there's a lot of trick names that are just after the person. So we got the barley grind, the Bennett grind, we got K grinds, we've got cab, and all these kind of things kind of developed because one person made them popular. So, you know, if Bennett came out, Matt Bennett said, you know, it's not called a Bennett grind anymore, it's called the lollipop slide, then no one would care. It's not going to happen. So that's the thing. There's no standard governing body over skateboarding who decides what this trick is called and puts it in the rule book for next year's season. Things just kind of happen. So when you're talking about the Ollie North, is it a dumb name? Is it an unnecessary name? Sure, but is it an invalid name? No, it counts. It counts just as much as anything else. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. I want to hear what you think about that as well. I also want to hear if you've ever invented a trick, and if so, did you try to name it? And how'd that work out? I've seen a lot in the freestyle world, at least, there's still a lot of stuff being invented. A lot of people try to come up with weird names like the latte flip. You have that laser flip where you underflip it with your heel. That's called a kiwi flip. There's all kinds of weird stuff like that out there. I want to hear your stories about inventing tricks or changing trick names as well. Was something called something totally different where you're from than what everyone else calls it. You got like the no comply 180 versus the 43, which is the same thing, called different things, different areas. So I want to hear all your stories about trick naming below. And until next time, here are some more videos you might want to check out I did recently. And don't forget to subscribe by tapping my logo on screen so you can learn something new about skateboarding 3 times a week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thanks for watching.